Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Wednesday Walkabout. And yes, spring is starting to explode/unfold as March is just around the corner. February is coming to an end, and I think we need to do a little walkabout to see what is coming up, what is in bloom, what has me worried, and what has me excited. What do you say, Stuart?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, I got my cool jobs gloves on in case I see any dirty little chores out here that need to be addressed. Let's start out with the window box. And at this point, I would kind of call it a fail. It in no way looks the way I anticipated it would look this spring. I am not going to take all of the blame. However, a good dose of it falls on the shoulders of Mother Nature. Because look at these.
Sure you were going to say Stuart.
Well, Stuart, I don't think you can take any blame for this. But look at how short these tulips are. When a winter is not cold enough and when it is very dry, then often tulips will bloom squatty and on very short stems. This is particularly a problem in containers, and this is very much a container. And so they are blooming on these tiny little 3 to 4 foot stems, and these normally should be 15 to 16 inches. The blooms are probably a little bit smaller. Now I am aware that the stems will continue to grow, and thankfully it has cooled off today. So this past week it has been in the upper 70s and low 80s, and then last night the weatherman said we got down to 26. I don't know that I really believe that, because there was no evidence of any kind of freeze or frost here, probably because the ground temperatures and the soil was so warm. But nevertheless, these little darlings have gone from 82 degrees down to 26 degrees in very short order. It's just not, they're sweet, but it's just not the show I wanted. And typically, the other reason it's not the show I wanted is because the things inside have not had a chance to catch up. So I have some ajuga planted in here. I have a bunch of violas, and because it's just so early in the year, they haven't had a chance to grow up and match the maturity and the development of the tulips. So it's not terrible, but it certainly isn't what I was envisioning. The other thing is, I was hoping that by the time they bloomed, I would be able to plant one more Irish mint euonymus in here and also do some pruning on these. But it's still a little bit early to do that. It's already starting to come out with new growth on it. So basically, I am just going to cry uncle. I'm just going to cry uncle here. I'm just going to enjoy it such as it is. It doesn't have all of the other extra components I would like. Typically, I would have envisioned putting in some cabbages, some lettuces, but these guys are blooming about 2 to 3 weeks early. 3 weeks, maybe even a month early. So, and granted, they are early blooming varieties. So what does that tell me? That tells me to immediately after I do this segment, go inside and make note to self. If I'm going to plant tulips in the window box, I need to make sure that they are all late blooming varieties, or perhaps better yet, I might just do miniature daffodils or hyacinths or something. Yes, Stuart, you have a question.
I raised my hand really well. Maybe a silly question, but so what happens to them now? Do they continue to grow up, or will they stay at this?
Okay, they will continue to grow taller. And the fact that it has cooled down today is a good thing, because they will continue to grow taller in these cooler temperatures. And happily, it's not real windy today, and especially it's not hot and windy, because if it were hot and windy, the lifespan of these tulip blooms would just be very short indeed. So we'll just keep an eye out. I will definitely follow the progress on it. And we'll just see what it does. If nothing else, I can just enjoy this as meager as it is and just wait until the next season. But I will zhuzh this up a little bit with some other players as the week progresses and as I find things that are available. So we'll just take it as it is right now, and just like I say, we'll cry uncle and we'll move on to a more fun project. Well, the star magnolia, it didn't seem to suffer too much from those really low temperatures last night. All of the blooms did not freeze out. A few of them are looking a little bit floppy, but those that are still in bud form, they are fine. I think tonight it's supposed to get down to about 30, 32, and then we warm up again, and there's not any temperature even close to that as a daily low for the next 14 days. So I think that this will be fine. I think it will be beautiful, and it already is beautiful. The color is gorgeous. Mostly, I'm especially pleased that when I moved it, it in no way, well, let's just say it didn't decide to die and leave us. It is beautiful. It seems to be just fine. It looks like it is flourishing. And in fact, I'm going to come in here and maybe cut a couple of these canes. These are actually suckers. And I'm going to prune off a couple of these, and I'm going to take them inside to force. Now, I probably won't get any buds, any blooms off of this when it's forced, but I will nevertheless get some pretty leafy growth, and I will be content with that. I'm not going to do too much, just a couple of these suckers, as I said. That will also increase the airflow through here, and it will open it up a little bit so I can see through to the patio. I think I'm going to do this one down here as well. This is such a fun project to do, is force forsythia, quince, plum trees, apple trees, crabapple branches, and bring them inside and force those buds open once the buds get enough water and they get enough warmth. Yeah.
If I can get it. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, and I might get a flower out of this, but if not, I just like the spring look of the branches themselves. In case you are interested, it looks like the Encore Azalea topiaries are just fine. They are even starting to set some bud, and pretty soon the foliage will begin to fill out, and I think they're going to be fine. I need to secure it. They're looking a little bit rough. This is a pot of tulips that I had in the garage and I brought out, and I am hoping that they are going to wait to bloom and get a little bit more glorious, a little bit more dramatic in stature before they do their thing. What's interesting is while the early blooming tulips from Color Blends are already blooming, some of the late season ones that we planted in the ground, they're just now starting to erupt from the soil. So I will get a long and hopefully a protracted show as March goes into April. So I'm good with that. Now, here is something I am very, very thrilled about. You may recall that in this whole area here, I had tons of agapanthus. And as kind of an experience or experiment, I tried a number of different varieties because I love them all. But it was Indigo Frost that I was really hoping could make it through a cold winter. We got down to 0 degrees here, and I'll be darned if I don't see 2 of them all ready to start pushing out greenery from the root ball, and I am thrilled with that. So hopefully they will expand and even be larger and more showy this spring. Some of the other varieties, the emerald amethyst, some of the other ones, I'm not sure if they will come up or not. They're not reliably hardy, but we will see, and if they don't, then I will just replace them with indigo frost. Now, this area in here, I am noticing it's not so bad when you're standing down there, but when I'm up here, definitely I need another spot of evergreen foundation, bone work, if you will, in here. And I'll plant an evergreen someplace, probably another boxwood, a better boxwood, in here. And then when all of this fills out, this is kind of my towering annual area. When all of this fills out with larkspur, cleome, celosia, minoan lace, the buddleias all begin to fill out. It will be resplendent. And for the winter, I just need one more, I think, evergreen piece in here. I'm gonna have to be careful though, because there's lots of perennials in here that I'm gonna have to work around. I can't believe how well the sunshine ligustrum is coming out. And I'm gonna clip these into kind of loose ball shape. And if you want to do the same, you just go for it. You can clip these into any shape you want. If they've gotten too large and you want to maintain their size, then by all means, you can go ahead and start pruning on them. I like to clip them, as I said, into these kind of loose orbs because they just look like glowing balls when you're walking along the sidewalk. And boy, Stuart, you were mentioning how much stuff has come out just in the past couple of days. These, by the way, in no way got nipped or hurt by the freeze, so they're just fine. All of the abelia is starting to come out, and it's going to be just lovely. All of these tulips, oh my goodness, now I'm really starting to see where the tulips are showing up. And all of this salvia, tons of larkspur. Now, the reason with all of this warmth that things aren't any larger than they are is because we haven't had any rain. If we had had rain, all of this stuff would probably be 1/3 as large because it's starting to put out new growth. And if it had some really good raindrops to kind of fuel that growth, it would be great. This It's a Breeze rose, this is a Southern Living rose, and look at how much foliage it's put out. And again, that last freeze, or the freeze we had last night, if it even materialized, didn't really do much of anything. My blueberries, look here, the blueberries are starting to push out what looked to be, these were just little gallon plants that I planted last year. I nevertheless got some blueberries from them, and they are starting to fill out. So you can see I've cut back a lot of things, and I'm starting to tidy things up. I really am liking the way things are looking. I'd like it better if we'd get some rain. But to make things a little cheerier, and once I finish my grooming, then I will by that time have these gorgeous pots complete. Now, here was another, I would say, an epic fail, but that's okay. And that was, you may recall that I planted this concrete basket with Easter grass. Now that seed was 1 year old, and I hoped it was still viable to germinate, but I gave it enough time. It was showing no signs of germination, and so I wanted to get this sweet little Easter basket planted. So I am planting all of my urns for right now on that flank the steps going up to the front porch and down to the bottom at the base of the new railings. I'm planting them all in tete-a-tete daffodils, Peter Stuyvesant hyacinth, these purple hyacinths, some taller daffodils, some muscari, some sweet, look at this. Sweet little grape hyacinths. Can you see that? So dear. And by the way, I got all of these at Walmart, and I got a whole flat for, gosh, it was around $20. What a deal. So I don't have to worry about forcing them myself or planting them myself and all of that. I have done that in the past, but now I kind of want instant gratification. And so I can, in one fell swoop, one afternoon of planting, I can transform these empty pots with these little daffodils and these sweet pansies and violas. So these are already done, and probably this weekend I'll bring you guys along with me as I plant the two at the bottom of the stairs. And I fill these urns at the bottom of the stairs. Obviously, it's been very, very windy. I've got lots of leaf cleanup to do. This is definitely the nature of gardening at this time of year in Oklahoma. It's windy, it's pretties meet uglies, and we're just trying to clean up the uglies and enhance the beauties, if you will. So I've got lots of that to do. Ultimately, once all of this is cleaned up, the grass should green up here within the next week, even more than it already is, and I will edge it really well. And then, by then, this blue, white, and yellow stream that comes down on this half of a rondelle will then be punctuated by the urns blooming in the same color at the bottom of the railings. So Stuart, if you'll pan back and see what it looks like up there by the porch, and then that will be repeated down here. And all of these things, all of the pansies, all of the violas, those will continue to grow, and they'll be really, really beautiful. Now, some of the perennials I'm already keeping an eye on because way too early, but nevertheless, for example, this Veronica, this lavender Veronica, has already, look at how tall it already is. It's probably 6 inches tall. Now I want this to be as large a mound as possible right here and really consume this space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch. So Stuart, let's see if we can show everyone out there. Let me hold this down. And then this is one of the fleshy perennials that you can pinch for added bushiness and increased bloom. So right here along the stem, I'm going to pinch that. I could cut it also, but I'm going to pinch that. Then I'm going to pinch it, and 2 sets of leaves will come up on either side of that stem, increasing the number of stems and increasing the bloom. So see, I'm going to do this all around the plant.
Show them one more time where.
Okay, right here. So I'm going to come down here. I've got a stretch of stem right here. I could do it all the way up here too, but I want it to get bushy starting at a lower point. So I'm going to prune it right there. You can't do this wrong, you guys.
You say that.
I could cut this back practically all, it could freeze back all the way to the ground and it wouldn't kill it, and it will start again. So I'm pinching all of these. And not only am I pinching all of these, I will pinch all of the Veronica that I've got growing in other areas in the garden. And that will make it that much more lush and that much more full. So let's take a break here and we'll move on and see what else is coming up. So along autumn's edge, In fact, Stuart, if we can, if you could turn around and get a long view, you can see that right along the brick wall, it's lined with tulips. In fact, one of them is starting to bloom short. While that one is blooming short, others, like right here, are just starting to break the surface.
Oh, there's the little guy.
And so what I'm doing now is just walking along here and assessing what needs to be done. Okay, here's another early bloomer on a very short stem. I got a bunch of these flags the other day and I started walking around here and I thought, okay, I need to zhuzh this a little bit. I need to transplant some of these things that were planted in the wrong location because I didn't really take the time to communicate well enough where I wanted them to go. So I'll be coming back in here and transplanting a few things. So I am going to take this sunshine ligustrum and I'm going to transplant it someplace else. I am not sure, but I've got a whole block here of these apple blossom roses. And so I'm going to remove this, and see this apple blossom rose that's too squished up here in this boxwood village? I'm going to move it over here. And then I'll have this whole expanse of all of these roses that can grow together. I'm going to do something similar over here, and I'm going to move, which is why I had the flags, I'm going to move 2 of these Obsession Nandinas to give these roses a lot more room to grow, and I'll transplant these someplace else. That way, they won't be in competition with these Obsession Nandinas. They'll be able to get large, and ultimately they will kind of fill this whole space. And remember that these tulips are not going to be here during the regular growing season. They will bloom, and then I'll be removing their foliage. There's lots of new growth that's starting to come out on all of these better boxwood. This is heritage right here, and look at the new growth.
They do look kind of nice, don't they?
Yeah. And boy, once that starts coming out more vigorously, you'll really be able to tell. I am going to have to come back in here and top dress this with more mulch because a lot of that has been degraded over time. Look here at these abelias. These are kaleidoscope abelias, and look at all of that new growth. Is it not gorgeous? So right now things are looking pretty rough, but by next week I think it's going to be amazing how the spring show is really beginning to transform the space. I've got some yarrow coming up in here. I had a dead plant there that I've already taken out. Let's see what else is going on. Well, let's take a break here, Stuart, before we go up and close out this walkabout. Well, hooray, hooray, hooray! My red buds are starting to break bud, and this is something that I just love. They're the exact same tone and in the same tonal family as the star magnolia, and I love that. So if they continue to bud out and bloom in tandem, I think it will be really breathtaking. I've cleaned up Lemon Lane and I've discovered a few things. Look here. Last year, I had inside some of these forced bulbs, and unlike tulips that are just kind of like a one shot and they're done, I don't try to get them to rebloom in the garden, but I planted these outside and they indeed are blooming. So I will do the same thing with all of the muscari that I'm going to be using in containers, and I'll plant those along in here. Here are some daffodils coming up. All of this Miss Lemon Abelia is starting to come out. The Miss Bonnie Spirea is starting to come out. This bag is going to come out of the garden because it drives me crazy. And then over here, I can see a lot of the things that I've already cut back are starting to come out at the base and do just fine. All of the butterfly candy is starting to come out. You can see right at your feet, Stuart, see those blooms or those buds coming out? That's 4 different huge alliums that will be blooming. The ground looks very, very rough, so I'm going to wait for a few more seeds to germinate, and then I'll come back in here, clean up the rest of the leaves, and top dress it with more mulch. And lastly, because this redbud has a lot more crossed branches than the other ones do, I'm going to take this opportunity to come in here and snip some of them and bring them in for forcing. So I'm going to take this one off. This one isn't quite as far along in budding as the others are. And I'm going to put these in the same vase with that star magnolia because of the color echo. That should really be beautiful. Let me see.
Need me over there? Or am I good here?
I think you're good there. I just you can kind of see how I'm just simultaneously pruning some things to bring inside to force, but also to reduce the density in here of the canopy. And I'm taking out branches that are crossed. Not too many, but a few. I should have on my safety glasses doing this. But just enough to bring a few branches inside. So there you go. That is what is coming up. I am a little bit worried about some of the tulips, but this has happened before, and I think they'll be fine. They just need a little bit more time, and the fact that things have cooled down is very, very helpful. I think I've lost half of a boxwood here. I'll fix that. But overall, I'm pretty amazed that since all of this stuff was newly planted last year, I'm really amazed that it survived. And then Stuart, let's just end up by showing them over here from a distance that the window box doesn't look too bad. We'll be doing a little bit of work on it, touch up on it. It needs to be leveled a little bit, but eventually I have faith that it will be as resplendent as it was last year. Spring gets us excited, but it also reminds us to be patient. So there you go. That's what's happening here on this Wednesday walkabout. The spring show, albeit a little bit out of sequence, is definitely beginning.